The afternoon sunlight slants through your window as you scroll the headlines, and a persistent chill sits at the back of your mind. America just hit stage 5 of a 7-stage empire collapse. The words echo, not unlike a warning in a storm. It's a bold claim, and at first glance, it can feel like the kind of alarm bell you don't want to ignore. But as you lean into the story, you realize this isn't just clickbait. It's a narrative built on real stress points: crushing national debt, political gridlock, global military obligations, and economic fragility. The question isn't whether it's sensational, it's whether it's true and what we do about it. Imagine a great civilization, once radiant, now straining under its own weight. That's the vision many of these 7-stage collapse stories paint. They draw from historical cycles, empires that grew, peaked, and then slowly unraveled. In this telling, America is deep into the age of decline, facing a gauntlet of challenges that could spiral into crisis if left unchecked. But unlike ancient Rome or long-gone dynasties, the U.S. is not powerless or unprepared. The story unfolding is not preordained, even if the risks are real. Let's travel together through this landscape, not as doomsayers bent on prophecy, but as citizens examining the fault lines. The debt is staggering. Not millions, not billions, but trillions. Year after year, the federal government runs deficits so large they defy easy comprehension. The burden grows heavier as interest rates climb, and the cost of servicing that debt begins to swallow more of the budget. Your tax dollars, along with borrowed money, are increasingly devoted not just to investing in the future, but simply paying interest on money we already owe. But it isn't just the debt. There's the weight of global ambition. The United States remains the world's preeminent military power, with a sprawling network of bases and alliances. That posture demands vast resources, and even in peace, the price is enormous. While such strength has protected American interests and undergirded global stability for decades, it comes with a long-term cost. Defense spending competes with healthcare, education, infrastructure, and social needs. And when more of the budget flows overseas or into advanced weapon systems, less remains for building a future at home. Meanwhile, inflation, though tamed from its worst peaks, still haunts families and savers. The cost of living has climbed. Wages are under pressure. The Federal Reserve has responded, raising interest rates, but that only feeds back into the cost of government borrowing. It's a delicate dance. Tighten too much, and you risk choking growth. Stay loose, and inflation could flare again. Either way, there's no easy path. On the world stage, the dollar remains dominant. Americans don't fully feel this every day. When you pay for gas or groceries, you don't think about reserve currencies. But abroad, central banks and treasuries still hold large quantities of U.S. debt, and trade deals often hinge on the dollar's role as a global anchor. That role gives America enormous financial leverage, what some call the exorbitant privilege. But that privilege is not guaranteed forever. Over time, other currencies and assets gain ground. Reserve diversification is gradual but persistent. Minor losses in trust or credibility can ripple across global markets, especially if combined with political missteps. At home, polarization has become more than a talking point. It's baked into the institution of government. Parties disagree on the direction of the country itself, not just on policy. That gridlock makes the long-term budget deals Americans need nearly impossible. Entitlement reform, tax reform, spending discipline, they all require compromise. Yet compromise seems more elusive than ever. Every year muscles bare, every debt-ceiling standoff threatens shutdowns, and the trust in institutions continues to erode. It's easy to look at these tensions and feel a kind of slow-motion anxiety, like watching a skyscraper tilt imperceptibly, but surely. The Stage 5 narrative captures that anxiety. It suggests that we've moved beyond early stress, beyond warning signs, and into the realm where problems start becoming structural. In other words, according to this view, the challenges are no longer just bumps in the road. They are foundational cracks. But making that leap from metaphor to reality requires judicious examination. It means asking, are we truly in a phase where collapse is imminent? Or are these challenges manageable, painful as they are, through policy reforms and collective discipline? The answer matters because it shapes the choices Americans and American leaders make now. One path forward demands courage, the courage to face the numbers, the demographics, the long-term obligations, and to act. This means serious conversation about entitlement programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and how they fit into a future where fewer workers support more retirees. It means laying out clear, multi-year budgets that aren't contingent on short-term political wins. It means reforming taxes, closing loopholes, modifying benefits, not for the sake of austerity, but to sustain long-term solvency. Another part of the solution involves growth. The U.S. economy is capable of extraordinary innovation in technology, green energy, biotech, digital infrastructure. If we can capitalize on that, we can grow our way out of some of the burden. Productivity gains, driven by smart public investments and private sector dynamism, could deflate the debt-to-GDP ratio even without dramatic cuts to services. Protecting institutional credibility is also critical. That means ensuring the Treasury market remains deep and liquid, preserving the independent role of the central bank, and avoiding policy moves that undermine trust in financial markets. A default, or even a serious risk of default, would shake confidence across the globe. Allowing political brinkmanship to threaten debt obligations undermines the stability that has underwritten American economic power for decades. We must also rebuild our social cohesion. Economic risk is not just about numbers on balance sheets. It's about people's trust in government, in institutions, and in each other. Polarization makes it hard to build consensus even for common-sense solutions. But the challenges of debt, inflation, and global competition won't wait for unity. We need to find new ways to govern, to compromise, and to serve the broad national interest rather than narrow political gain. If you pause here, you might ask, why should I believe the collapse narrative at all? Is this just fear-mongering repackaged for clicks? Not necessarily. The narrative resonates because the risk is real, the fiscal pressures are visible. The long-term projections suggest trouble if we don't change course. But believing that we're doomed, or already there, is neither useful nor accurate. The more compelling way to use this story is as a motivator, a call to action, not a self-fulfilling prophecy. From where most Americans sit, the daily grind of paying bills, raising kids, saving for retirement seldom feels like an empire collapsing. But macroeconomic trends operate on a different wavelength: slow, compounding, cumulative. You don't notice a national debt doubling in 10 years until the interest payments start crowding everything else. You don't feel the erosion of institutional trust until political standoffs threaten credit markets. You don't see the decline of dollar dominance until global shifts suddenly make treasury auctions more expensive. Here's a way to picture it. Imagine a huge dam holding back a reservoir. The water's pressure keeps rising. You can see small cracks forming, but the dam hasn't broken yet. Engineers talk about reinforcing it, patching the cracks, rebuilding sections, improving monitoring. Some people down below worry about evacuation plans. Others argue the dam is fine and the cost of repair is too high. That's our situation. The water level is high. There's increasing stress on the structure, but we're not at the point of collapse where the dam bursts. Yet. The question is whether we'll invest in the repairs now, or wait until a real danger forces us to act in crisis. Of course, everything hinges on politics. For all the dry talk of fiscal frameworks and interest payments, at its heart, this is a story about civic responsibility. It's about whether Americans grasp that the privileges we enjoy, global financial influence, military power, innovation capacity, are not free. They come with commitments to future generations, to institutions, and to strategic long-term planning. To preserve them, we need a generation capable of compromise, realism, and sacrifice. That doesn't mean austerity for its own sake. It means making hard choices in service of resilience. It means investing in education, infrastructure, clean energy, things that grow the economy. It means updating entitlement programs in a way that protects the vulnerable but ensures long-term fiscal health. It means strengthening democratic processes so that our economic power isn't undermined by short-term political games. If we get it right, we can defy the collapse narrative. We can steady the dam, patch the cracks, and channel the water safely without letting it overflow. We can maintain global leadership and domestic strength, not through ignorance or denial, but through deliberate, responsible governance. And we can build a future where America isn't merely avoiding collapse, but forging a renewed foundation built on innovation, inclusivity, and resilience. If we fail, the risks are real. Interest costs could consume more of the budget. Market confidence could falter. The dollar's primacy could erode, and with it, our room to maneuver in global finance. Political breakdowns could make compromise impossible when it's most needed. The result might not be a dramatic fall, a sudden collapse, but a long, painful decline, marked by creeping decay and diminished global influence. It is tempting, in moments like these, to surrender to alarmist narratives. But alarm alone doesn't solve anything. The better path, and the more American path, is to face the challenges squarely, with clear eyes and steady hands. The nation has cycled through adversity before. We have rebuilt after wars, survived financial crises, and innovated our way into new frontiers. What we must not do is confuse caution with cynicism, risk with inevitability. So yes, the story of Stage 5 is more than just metaphor. It is a call to look seriously at the debt, the deficits, the global obligations, and the political divides. But it is not a destiny. The choices we make today about taxes, spending, reform, trust will chart the course for decades. If we act now, boldly and wisely, we may yet avoid the worst. If we don't, the cracks may widen, and the pressure may become overwhelming. The question isn't whether to believe in collapse, but whether to believe in renewal, and whether we are willing to do the hard work necessary to build it.